A man was filming outdoors when he was startled to see, not far away, an infant slowly moving around, as though someone had deliberately abandoned the little one by the roadside. The baby's mouth was chewing something unidentifiable, making Wyndham briefly wonder if he was hallucinating. Unable to resolve this, he decided to head back the way he came, aiming to return to the city, for the wilderness held too many unknown dangers. Strangely, after only a few steps, he encountered a young boy. Seeing that no one else was around, Wyndham assumed the boy must have gotten lost in the desert. He approached and asked if the child needed help, but the boy only said that his parents had gone missing. Feeling sympathy, Wyndham gently helped the boy to his feet, intending to bring him along back to the city. Yet, in an uncanny turn, the boy did not respond, merely remaining stock still and looking straight ahead. Recalling that this child was completely alone, Wyndham hurried after him, but the boy trudged forward in the desert for half an hour. Up ahead lay a signal dead zone, an unpopulated expanse. Alarmed, Wyndham quickly told the boy to stop and offered him some of his limited water supply. Wyndham decided not to stay with the child any longer and turned back, determined to find his vehicle and leave the wilderness. But as night fell, he lost his sense of direction and trudged on aimlessly. Eventually, from a higher vantage point, he spotted a woman down below, standing near a small wooden house. Wyndham made his way down, approached the door, and knocked strenuously. Getting no reply, he pushed the door open and found the woman busy cooking. Wyndham initially asked if he could borrow her phone, but the woman, living alone, invited him to stay the night instead. She even invited him to share a meal. Exhausted from the day's journey, Wyndham gladly accepted. While eating, he briefly recounted his experiences that day, but the woman offered no noticeable reaction. When he said he just needed a drink, the woman poured the food she had given him back into her own bowl and handed him a cup of water. Possibly because he was too tired, Wyndham soon fell into a deep sleep that evening. The next morning he awoke to find the woman still asleep, so in an effort to show gratitude, he left some money behind and quietly departed. But once he stepped outside, he was perplexed to see that the iron ladder from the previous night was gone, replaced by a single short segment attached to mid-air, leading nowhere. This left Wyndham thoroughly bewildered. Determined to ask the woman about it, he went back inside only to discover she was still sleeping. He went back out and began filming the oddities around him, for the place was filled with strange sights. There were bizarre symbols on the rocky walls, and in the yard stood a large iron cage. At that moment, the woman awoke and came out. When Wyndham questioned her about the ladder, she claimed she had no idea. Perhaps someone had taken it for use. She said it had happened before and might eventually be returned, but Wyndham was suspicious. In such an uninhabited desert, how could another person suddenly appear? He pressed her for any other way out of this spot, but to his dismay she had nothing helpful to offer. Refusing to give up, he gathered his courage and tried to climb the rocky wall with his bare hands, shouting for help in hopes someone would hear him. Yet the only response from the canyon was the echo of his own calls.
Hello! Can anybody hear?
With no success, Wyndham returned to the small house and spent another night there. At daybreak, he searched the house for tools he could use to climb out. Trying once again, he managed to get partway up the rock face. Suddenly, a hen fell from above, frightening him into losing his grip and crashing to the canyon floor, where he blacked out. When he came to in the middle of the night, he felt a pickaxe embedded in his thigh. The woman, alerted by his pained cries, came over and, seeing his agony, pulled out the pickaxe with a forceful yank. The pain caused Wyndham to pass out again, and the woman then bandaged his wound. Wyndham started to sense there was something off about this place. He dragged the woman out of the house and demanded to know how to leave. She had no answer to give, instead urging him to stay and insisting she would take care of him. But Wyndham, unwilling to remain in such a bizarre situation, pushed her aside and sat in the yard, lost in thought. Abruptly, from the top of the rocky wall, someone called out. Looking up, he saw two people waving at him. Overjoyed, he called for help, explaining he was trapped. They happened to have a rope, long enough to haul him up. Wyndham rushed to the base of the cliff and grabbed hold as they began to pull him. He looked back at the house, relieved he might finally escape. But without warning, he felt a jolt, and everything above went silent. Thinking it was just a glitch, he shouted repeatedly, but received no answer. Mustering his own strength, Wyndham tried to climb, yet soon grew too weak to continue. Noon's scorching sun beat down on him, and he passed out. Sometime later, a mysterious trickle of liquid on his face brought him back to consciousness, and he glanced upward to see that someone was relieving himself from above. Even more startling, there were now 7 or 8 young people up there, and one of them abruptly yanked on the rope, violently swinging Wyndham against the rock wall like a leaf caught in the wind. He crashed again and again, his head and face battered, as he let out anguished cries that reached the ears of the woman inside the house. She rushed out and shouted at the group atop the cliff. Only after Wyndham lost consciousness did they stop and lower him back down.
Hey! Easy!
Whereupon the woman helped him inside. When he eventually awoke, he realized he was completely stuck in this deep chasm. The woman tried to persuade him to give up any hope of escape. A month passed, and Wyndham seemed resigned to his situation. He spent time with the woman, both of them now living in the bottom of the canyon. One day, as Wyndham noticed his sleeve was torn, the woman brought out some clothing from a cupboard. He put it on somewhat absent-mindedly. Over this period, he even tried growing vegetables, and those above would sometimes drop supplies, mainly wine and abundant food, leading him to feel as if his life there was being controlled. Accepting them passively, Wyndham would ask the woman if she ever wanted to leave, but she only said that since they were already here, they might as well make the best of it. This statement baffled him. Then one night, as they both drank heavily, Wyndham heard a noise outside. In his inebriated state, he ignored the woman's attempt to stop him and rushed out. All the events that had unfolded recently weighed on his mind. Under the influence of alcohol, he returned indoors and challenged the woman, questioning how she could remain so calm and uninterested in escaping. She merely said he was too intoxicated. Removing her garments, she caused Wyndham's mental defenses to crumble entirely, and they shared a deeply personal moment. Before long, the vegetables Wyndham had planted began to flourish, and the boy who delivered provisions appeared intrigued. Wyndham patiently explained how the plants were grown, and the boy promised to share new information next time, and asked Wyndham to teach him more. One day, while Wyndham was in the house, he discovered a photograph. The woman said it was a picture of her mother. Confused, he noticed the photo looked rather old. She clarified it was her first mother, but Wyndham assumed she meant a grandmother and did not dwell on it. Soon after, the woman revealed that she was pregnant, and Wyndham was stunned.
I have a child inside me growing. I'm not asking you to be a father.
To be mothered by some pathetic inbred halfwit.
On the following day, a flock of crows descended, destroying the young shoots he had been nurturing. Faced with these two setbacks, Wyndham lost motivation. Still, he had to go on living, so he pushed himself to keep trying. His leg injury gradually healed. About that time, the supply delivery boy returned, but had no fresh news to share. He asked if Wyndham was still willing to teach him, and Wyndham said he was happy to, though it would be difficult in their current situation. He also asked if the boy had ever thought of leaving. The boy said he could not leave. Wyndham mentioned that the woman was expecting a baby and asked if the boy would consider helping, promising that if they escaped, he would take both the boy and the woman along so they could be a happy family elsewhere. Suddenly, a long-haired older boy appeared, evidently having overheard. He quickly pulled the younger boy away from Wyndham, and that was the last time the two spoke. Early the next morning, Wyndham saw the younger boy's lifeless body hanging above, still and silent. The woman's emotions spiraled. She fell to the ground, screaming in despair. In that moment, Wyndham finally understood. They were her children. She blamed him for causing the boy's death, and struck Wyndham repeatedly. Then she locked him in the iron cage, leaving only minimal food each day, as though feeding a dog. At last, one evening, Wyndham made small noises, capturing the attention of a girl above and signaling for her to find help. She seemed to understand, and promised to bring someone, then left. Wyndham was overjoyed, but the woman was clearly close to giving birth, and before long, anguished cries erupted from above. That same girl had been caught, and to Wyndham's horror she was silenced right there in front of him. Once again, his hopes of leaving evaporated. Later that night, the woman brought a blanket to Wyndham. He pleaded with her to release him, promising not to run away, but she did not agree. A few mornings later, the woman awoke in pain, indicating it was time for the baby to be delivered. She struggled to the cage and unlocked it, asking Wyndham to help. He had spent months confined, and his legs were weak, so it took great effort just to stand. At that moment, the people above suddenly lowered a ladder. Perhaps his longing for freedom was too strong. Wyndham abandoned the woman and rushed over. A solar eclipse darkened the skies, casting the canyon into shadow. The woman delivered the baby right then, and its crying sound made Wyndham turn around again. Overcome with emotion at the sight of the newborn, he hurried back and carefully held the child, attempting to soothe it. Moved by the tiny life, Wyndham returned the baby to the woman. She then said that his role was already fulfilled. One day, this child would also become a mother, taking her place. Only then did Wyndham realize the truth. Boys born here would be left outside to wander, while girls would remain in this canyon. And any outsider who stumbled in would never leave, eventually becoming nourishment for the plants.
I will feed her and teach her and love her.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.